Indiana. I'm meteorologist Dave Baker. Welcome to the Monday edition of Let's Talk Tropics. Today is June the 18th, and it's still pretty quiet out there, at least for the tropics. Locally, we've had a little bit of action when it comes to the showers and thunderstorms. We'll go over that in just a little bit, but we left you on Friday with a couple of models that were kind of showing the possibility of some development, perhaps in the Western Gulf or maybe the Western Caribbean. But I will say that those two models have somewhat backed off over the course of the weekend and kind of shifted more of the development area back over the Pacific Ocean. So we'll talk about that. We'll kind of look to see if there's anything out there here to be concerned about over about the next 7 to 10 days. First of all, outside, at least here in Lafayette, we're getting a few peaks of sunshine. Temperature at 79 degrees, the dew point at 70, so it's still pretty muggy out there. Humidity 74%, winds out of the south at 5, and the pressure is at 30.02. And as far as our traffic, we're looking okay out here, at least here in Lafayette and most of the immediate Acadiana area. It's not raining, or we have some very light rain, but a little bit farther off toward the west, we've got some bigger thunderstorms that are developing, and I think that will be affecting many of us during the afternoon commute. So something to look out for. There's a look at the radar right now. The initial rounds of rain that we had this morning are kind of dissipating and moving off to the east, but you can see that there is another area of rain that's out here in the west, and it's pretty unstable back here. So we're going to go ahead and watch out for those thunderstorms to kind of move their way off toward the east. So even though the rain is kind of winding down locally, I do think it's going to start to pick up a little bit later on this afternoon. So do keep that in mind. There's a look at the satellite imagery, and we still have a bit of a trough in place. And over the course of the weekend, we kind of had a low that kind of drifted off in this direction, but there's a leftover trough that's still in the area too, and that's going to bring some problems there when it comes to the showers and thunderstorms are still going to be out there over the course of the day today. And as far as our wave heights and direction, most of our local waters are going to see 1 to 2 foot seas with winds out of the south at about 5 to 10 knots. But do remember there will be some higher winds and seas around those scattered showers and thunderstorms. So let's get into it. And this is going to be a fairly short broadcast for a couple of reasons. One, there isn't a whole lot to talk about that's out there. And number two, my favorite person in the whole world just showed up at my door, my granddaughter. So got to have one of those Papa days later this afternoon. So she's out there playing with everybody else. I'm looking forward to getting out there and doing some visiting. You can see there's a flare up, though, of some rain and some thunderstorm activity over the Bay of Campeche and then right there along the Texas coast. Part of that, at least the northern part of this is due to that trough that's kind of still in place over the Gulf Coast and then kind of drifts its way off down toward the south, but it extends way up into the middle part of the country. And that's been kind of an area where we're generating some showers and thunderstorms. And then this over here is kind of part of the Central American gyre. And then we got a bit of a tropical wave that's kind of coming in from the east. And that is going to continue to bring some moderate to heavy rains over Central America. And that's going to continue to very slowly drift its way off toward the west. Now, there is a tropical wave that's currently right about in here. And that's going to go ahead and continue to move off to the west. I will say the Pacific, and we're going to look at the areas there when the Pacific 7-day outlook from the National Hurricane Center, keeping things quite busy there on the western side. And some of the action that we were seeing in the models last week might be shifting in that direction as well. Looking at the Caribbean, again, it is fairly quiet out there. There is a significant amount of Saharan dust that's out here once again. There's the big bit of a tropical wave moving off toward the west, and that's generating these showers and thunderstorms here along the Panamanian coastline. But the rest of the Caribbean is looking okay. We got another tropical wave. It's about right in here that's going to continue to drift off toward the west, and that's going to freshen up the breezes there over the eastern and central part of the Caribbean. Meanwhile, the rest of the tropical Atlantic, again, is very quiet. We've got a tropical wave here, and again, that other tropical wave that's going to be approaching the Windward Islands in a number of days, but still quite a bit of Saharan dust out in the middle part of the Atlantic. It looks like a pretty good plume starting to come off the African continent once again. So at this point, it does not seem we're going to be seeing any tropical activity, at least over the next week or so. It appears that all the action is going to be on the Pacific side there, south of Central America. This is going to be the area here where a lot of that Central American gyre activity is going to be. So the Pacific outlook for the next 7 days has a pretty high chance that we're going to see another storm develop. They've had a number of named storms already on the Pacific side, which isn't that unusual, but that area there where the red X is and the shaded area off toward the west-northwest, that's one of the areas that sees typical development in the Pacific Ocean, at least the eastern Pacific Ocean this time of the year. Global Tropics Hazard Outlook will be renewed tomorrow. I'll have it for you on Wednesday. And you can see that the hot spots from last week are still over the Bay of Campeche and much of the Pacific for this week. And then for week 3, it still keeps the Pacific Ocean a bit on the busy side. We'll have to wait and see what tomorrow's update shows. And I'll have that for you on Wednesday. This one updates a little bit late in the day, so on Wednesday. That way we can kind of get an idea of week 2 and week 3. But we do look at the computer models. And again, we start with our global models because they're the long-range model. GFS goes out 16 days every run. European goes out 15 days every other run. And then the Canadian model goes out 10 days and the every other run, and then the icon only goes out 7. So we're going to start out with the GFS. And again, when I left you last week, we were looking at maybe middle to latter part of this week, this particular area for the possibility of some development. And you can see that now everything seems to be out here on the Pacific side, kind of outside of that circle. And when we left you again, we had the GFS that was trying to get maybe a trough or a low to develop there. And we also had the Canadian model that was starting to bite on that. And even the icon was starting to increase the moisture. And the Euro had a couple of blips where there was a bit of a low pressure area kind of in this particular area. But this week, it looks like the GFS is backed off. The Euro tends to see a bit of a back off on anything developing and seems to be concentrating more of its energy again on the Pacific side once again. But you can see that there's a blowup of moisture that's here over the western part of the Gulf. Right now, it doesn't look very promising that we're going to see anything develop, which of course is good news. But if you are looking to see something to get started or have the Atlantic Basin wake up from the dormant period outside of hurricane season, right now, it doesn't look like this week is going to be the week. And even the icon model shows a flare up there down to the south of Central America on the Pacific side around the Gulf of Tehuantepec, which is right about in that area. That's the Gulf of Tehuantepec there. So you get a lot of development, but if something were to cross over, maybe get into the western part of the Gulf. But at the very least, I think this area is going to see a significant amount of rain here over the next several days. And finally, we're going to look at the icon. Once again, if you pay attention to the icon, it seems like all the action is over on the other side of the Pacific side with a bit of a moisture flow here on the western part of the Gulf. Nothing that looks organized, but definitely looks like we've got some increased chances for rain and maybe some heavy rain there over Central America and the eastern part of Mexico. At this point, all of our water temperatures, except for right along the Yucatan Peninsula, and they're right off the east coast of Florida, just about everywhere in the Atlantic Basin that has tropical activity during the month of June can be sustained pretty easily there as all of our water temperatures are warm enough, and in many cases they're above normal. I do want to remind you though, if you see this map, this is our water temperatures compared to normal, and that just at first glance, when you see all the blue there that's over the Caribbean and the Atlantic, you kind of get excited, said, oh, well, those waters are nice and cool. Maybe that'll help us out. Well, it will help us out a little bit because the water temperatures are below normal. But as I showed you on the water temperatures there, everything that's over 26.5 degrees Celsius or basically yellow or brighter on this particular map can sustain tropical activity. So even though the temperatures are a little bit below normal, the temperatures are warm enough to be able to sustain tropical activity as those surface waters are at or above 80 degrees. And also I wanted to point out the tropical cyclone heat potential, which is a measurement of not just the water temperature at the surface, but how deep that 80-degree water goes. Got a little bit more of that loop current starting to show up here over the southeastern part of the Gulf. And if you're not familiar with that loop current, there have been several tropical systems that have crossed over this loop current in the past and gone through rapid intensification. A couple of examples are Katrina and Rita. Both did that 20 years ago. Hard to believe that's 20 years ago, but 20 years ago back in 2005. So if we were to get something to try to develop in these areas or perhaps move over those areas, if they're a full-fledged tropical system, can tap into that energy and occasionally you get rapid intensification. Shear is a bit on the high side, though. We've got lower wind shear, though, over the western Atlantic and the eastern part of the Gulf, but you can see there across much of the Caribbean and even the southern part of the Gulf down toward the Bay of Campeche, that wind shear value is still relatively high, and it looks like it's going to be getting even higher as we go toward the latter part of the week. Remember, we were looking at the possibility of some kind of a trough maybe building there on the western side of the Gulf, but again, it does appear wind shear would be more likely to allow something to get going more on the Pacific side. And Saharan dust is still going to be an issue. Doesn't seem to be quite as choking as what we saw back in 2024, but there's still a considerable amount of Saharan dust out there, and that will also help to keep things from really firing up here over the next several days. Real quick, I want to go over some of the things that you can grab right now to be hurricane ready right now. This is good things to get when there are no tropical systems out there, and this is kind of what you're supposed to be doing ahead of June 1st before storm season starts. But batteries, flashlights, water, non-perishable food, and food for first aid and medicine, personal hygiene, and cleaners, and then make your IDs and insurance important papers. Get those saved as digital. That'll help you out. And of course, a basic tool set, some kids' entertainment, and some pet supplies are always good to have on with you whenever you're in the middle of hurricane season. If something fires up, you got something for your kids, and also you got all the supplies for your pets. So again, this is something that you can be doing right now when there are no tropical systems coming in, and that'll get you ahead of the game. When anything does come, then you won't have to fight everybody else at the stores trying to grab some of these supplies. Well, I hope you enjoy this broadcast. If you do like this video, subscribe to my channel and also turn on those notifications. And hi, Waynette. Yeah, I am so excited to go see Scarlett here in just a little bit. I'm going to have a blast today. You can also hear my forecast on Big 102.1, Planet Radio 106.7, and Freedom 95.1. And also follow my social media pages, both on Facebook and X. And thanks to everyone who's already subscribed to Acadiana Weather Today here on YouTube. Make sure you do that subscription and turn on those notifications. That way you know anytime Acadiana Weather Today goes live, whether it's Let's Talk Tropics or any severe weather coverage, or of course every weekday morning I have Acadiana Weather Today that airs at 7 o'clock. Hope you all have a great day. Try to stay dry. I'll do radar updates throughout the afternoon on both Facebook and X, so you can follow those social media pages there and get updated throughout the day. Have a great Monday, and I'll see you tomorrow morning for Acadiana Weather Today.